Hello, I'm Chris, and this is a video where I'm just going to talk a bit about games development, because I'm an indie games developer, and talk a bit about projects I've worked on over the last 3 or 4 years, and basically talk about my game development process as well, I suppose, and the different engines I've worked with, the different technologies, all this sort of thing. I have been working as an indie game dev now for I think 4 or 5 years overall. It will be now actually. My first game was called Glitch, which was built with Twine engine. It was an interactive fiction game that I built with Twine, and then basically styled it up a lot of CSS as well, so it gave it a very unique sort of cyberpunk aesthetic. It's very informed by authors like William Gibson, Philip K. Dick, certainly Philip K. Dick, science fiction author, and in that you play a sort of consciousness who is trying to ascertain why it's there, because you're in a computer basically at the start of it, like a sort of ghost in the box sort of idea. It implements video, a bit of WebGL as well, which is designed in Play Canvas, the cloud-based JavaScript WebGL engine. And yeah, that was the first game I sort of got started on a while ago. I think it would have been 2015, maybe 14. So yeah, that was the first game I completed. That took about 6 months, I think, overall, give or take. Most of the complexity comes in because I wanted to introduce sort of a lot of choice into the game, with different endings, which there is. There's an Easter egg in there as well, even if you search for it. And it went through several different iterations as well, until it came to a final sort of design, which was sort of influenced by like the Matrix, Gibson, all that sort of thing, cyberpunk. And then yeah, from then I sort of got involved in downloaded Unreal Engine. I went and got a new better computer, Unreal Engine and Game Guru, and those became the two primary engines I worked on since then. Game Guru is more of a sort of beginner's game engine, really. It's like sort of, you get lots of assets with the engine. It's got a very easy to use landscape tool, and it's very good for making like first person shooters and things like this. It's very simple. So next real project we worked on was Kill Starlings, which is a sort of absurdist shooting game, basically just one level. Made it over a few days. I just finished working in as a developer in Salford at the time. I wasn't really doing much with my life, to be honest. I was sort of drifting, and I thought, it's time to get back into the game dev again, because I really enjoy it and a lot of spare time. So that sort of gave me the bug again, and it wasn't that too long after I finished Glitch, but it was a fair few months because I've been working full time as a developer doing JavaScript programming, basically React. So I did that with Game Guru very quickly. It's a silly game really in a lot of ways, just shooting Starling clones. It's just a lot of humour in the game basically. And then the next two projects I did after that were sort of expansions on that, like trying to building these first person games in Game Guru. And that, even though I don't use Game Guru anymore, it's still a useful process, because in terms of learning how to design an environment, how to place assets, place buildings, place foliage, design hills, design areas, make it look believable but also fantastical. That really helps just using that engine, and it's a nice entry level engine as well, I think. It's not the sort of engine you're going to make serious games on, but it is. You can make some interesting stuff on it, and people have. Then I worked on The Comedian, and then Shroom Hunter was probably the best game of around that period I made. Shroom Hunter was for Ludum Dare, and that was basically you have to collect 20 mushrooms. And then there's a zombie element as well. So zombies rush at you. You're in combat, and you have to bash them and avoid the zombies, avoid getting eaten alive, basically. And then collect all 20 mushrooms. So there's a bit of basic scripting in that with Lou. And that was for Ludum Dare, and that actually got quite a lot of downloads and decent response actually for Ludum Dare. I think I did alright on that actually. I can't remember the exact rating I got, but generally it was received quite well because you have to make Ludum Dare games over 3 days. So considering I did it in 3 days, I mean I really caned it. I was working really late and drinking a lot of coffee over 3 days. But I was relatively happy with that game. Of all the Game Guru games, it's probably the best I've made. There's another one I made, Comedian, which is sort of just a jokey game I made about a mate. And then after this, I sort of started taking Unreal Engine more seriously. I'd been doing little bits of level design for random projects, which some of which took off, some of which were just never really took off. But I just got involved in those anyway. So I started to learn a lot more about level design in Unreal Engine, which I'm still learning, still new stuff even today, but then also started to use blueprints in Unreal Engine, so I started to get used to that, the sort of visual programming that you've got in Unreal Engine. So the next games I built were Nanomaze and Torn. I'll start with Torn because it's easier for me to describe. Torn is well, not really, but Torn's a dating simulator set in hell. It's basically, you've got 5 suitors. It's made for Ludum Dare again, and you have to question them all. And I did some voice recording for that, and did all the graphics myself because it was the version of Ludum Dare where you have to do all the design and assets yourself. And after that, I created Nanomaze, which is probably the best thing I've done on Unreal Engine. It's certainly the most traditional in terms of traditional game design. And that's basically a sort of Pac-Man game where you're a robot in a maze and you have to find the exit. And some basic AI in it as well, some pathfinding, path following, navigation, waypoint sort of systems for the AI. So that's my first introduction to AI in Unreal Engine, like using Blackboard and stuff. So that was really useful. I was happy with the aesthetic of that game. Like I said, I had to do over 3 days of another Ludum Dare game. So I've sort of ported that to mobile, but it's not quite finished yet. I just haven't found the time to finish that off. But it's basically done. But I need to just beautify it for mobile and release it for mobile. But anyway. After that, and I also worked on Ginny. Actually, I should mention that during the time I was doing that Unreal Engine work, I was working on Ginny, which was my last gasp with Game Guru. So that emerged as an idea between me and Harvey McCurley. He's another developer I work with quite a lot. And it was an RPG sort of sandbox game set in a post-apocalyptic world where extreme forms of religion had taken hold, and it was basically malevolent, how do you say that? Nasty spirits, anyway, basically, that had taken hold of it. And then there's 4 tribes in it and stuff. So it had an interesting setting. The limitations of the engine sort of made it not the game I wanted it to be, but still relatively okay. And I needed to go through that process of making the game, I think, because I needed to make something more ambitious. Did a lot of playtesting of that at Shindig, which is the Sheffield games dev meetup I used to go to quite frequently. Meetings with game developers, and that's also very important. I think games dev is finding a community of people to work with and have testing games on with. So I finished that. That took basically a year, and then more recently I've been working. I worked in Nourish Nosferatu, which is the last Ludum Dare game I did. Basically, a game where you play a flesh slave who has to choose a victim for your master, who's a vampire. Nosferatu in this case, and very happy with that in terms of the look of it. Again, sort of cyberpunk look and feel, and some basic interactions with characters like narrative branches and stuff. But yeah, so that's like an overview of all the stuff I've done over the last 3 or 4 years. So my experience being a game developer, indie game developer, is I love it. I still love it, and finding the time can be difficult now, but it's a great thing to get involved in. Unreal Engine's where it's at now. I'm sticking with that. I've done a few things in Unity recently as well, but just demos really, not anything substantial or anything that's a game really. But yeah, that's a bit of background on my background as an indie game developer. I'm currently working on a project called Cosmic Winds, which is quite an ambitious one. It's a space simulation involving a building element, and I'm working on half again on the story. And that is in prototype form at the minute, so you can fly around in a spaceship and land on planets and there's guns and stuff. But it's quite early days for that, but that's quite exciting. I've got quite big plans for that. So yeah, I mean, I'll talk a bit about indie game dev, I suppose. And yeah, so I think indie game dev is like in a golden age because of all the tools that we have at our hands now. It's easier than ever to get into it, and that's great. And yeah, going forward, like I said, build on Unreal Engine more. I think Cosmic Winds is like more, that's sort of the big, like Ginny was with Game Guru, is sort of the big Unreal Engine project that I'm working on now, and big plans for that really. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed watching this video where I talk a bit about projects I've worked on in the past and my sort of background and history as a game developer. I suppose I should talk a bit about my academic history is basically computer science, so that helped a lot of getting into games dev because I had that grounding of knowledge in programming and design as well, graphics, and that sort of abstract thinking that you do have to sort of take on as a games designer because you have to see everything big picture. Games developer, sorry, you have to take on all the aspects of the design, the programming, the 3D graphics, especially as an indie as well. You have to sort of become a jack of all trades in a lot of ways. I think the one thing I need to get a bit better at is 3D design and 3D, developing 3D objects. But I'm actually doing a lot more work with, in work, I mean, like more work with A-Frame, which is like it's like a VR framework thing. So I've been doing a lot more of that in work, and then JavaScript as well, so that's helping improve my programming in general. But yeah, anyway, that's my video on summing up games development, my experience as a games developer for the last indie games dev for the last few years. So thanks for watching.